মাইক হাতে নিয়ে এবার যে কথা বলবি মাইক হাতে নিবি, এমনি বলবি না। হাই গাইস, উই জাস্ট স্টার্টেড দ্য লাইভ স্ট্রিম। কেউ ফোন থেকে খুলে দেখতো অডিও ফডিও যাচ্ছে কিনা ঠিকঠাক। হ্যাঁ, এবার ঠিকঠাক যাবে এতক্ষণ। Yes, mine is working. So we are going to we are confused. First, we are going to discuss, no, not in order, but we are going to generally go around discussing caste, reservations, or discuss with them, and the need or importance of social science education. Again, the defund versus funded strategic funding discussion. So, firstly, we are in the middle of a discussion right now. Say hi to everybody, guys. These are the people here.
Hello everyone.
This is our Vanguard. I wish everyone else was visible as well. But anyway, yeah, at least more people are visible this. But if I was to sit like a Zamindar who's watching now, voice isn't clear. No, I want the message. Maybe it can be clearer this way. मैं शो इधर क्या ना कर दे कल ये टेबल तक भी दो कारण voice distance from the camera is not easy टेबल तक भी दो
একটু শুনে কর্নার একটু
और बात क्या हाँ चार्जर तो देखिए
চুলটা সব
no one can be seen or heard. You will be only you could. আমি দেখতে পাচ্ছি ও no one can be seen বলতে বলেছে যে বাকিদের দেখতে পাচ্ছে now you will be seeing everyone. Okay.
আমার চুলটা একদম বেকার হয়ে গেছে।
Yeah, so I'm sure you all can hear.
চুলটা খুলেনি, চুলটা সব অর্ধেক খোলা অর্ধেক বন্ধ।
হ্যাঁ, so remember where your mic is. ঠিক আছে? So yeah, now let us know the quality again. So guys, yes, we were in the middle of a discussion that some people are stuck in something called left habitus and people who are making a jump in their class and caste. Okay, একটু এদিকে সত্য একটু আমি পিছুই তাহলে আরো বেশি লোকজন আসতে পারবে ফ্রেমে। Yeah. So people who are making a jump in their class and caste for the first time in any generation, they are sort of stuck in between two worlds. And reason I ask you to look up what cleft habitus is, there's a certain phenomenon that we discuss all the time, that people whose castes jump because of a certain kind of education or a certain kind of progress in one generation out of the blue happened, some economic progress even. Because of that, their consumption patterns change out of the blue. Not even out of the blue, obviously, it's a 10-15 year process. They start consuming things, products, everything the same way as the caste and status groups above them do. And they also start watching Harry Potter and English Premier League and watch Game of Thrones, etc. And that's how they become friends with upper castes and upper status people in any society. It's not a Hindu caste system we are talking about. Now in that situation, the people who are upwardly mobile status wise actually do not make friends with people in the higher status groups who are also upwardly mobile, by the way. They are actually downwardly mobile, ritually speaking, because everybody else kind of looks down upon them, because they are actually the heterodoxes in the upper caste, which is why they are also stuck in the cleft habitus. So the meeting of the two castes, one upwardly mobile and one downwardly mobile, happens between two people both stuck in cleft habitus, who don't identify that well, who don't gel well with their own status group, but also don't gel with completely the status above them nor below them. So they just make friends with the ones right below them who have kind of just joined them in the party. And অতটা দূরে রাখতে হবে, হ্যাঁ এইখান থেকে বলতে হবে, ঠিক আছে? লেট মি নো ইফ দ্য ফ্যান অফ করো বলছে, করেছে। Put the phone away from him in a high place. Yeah, we all did that nicely without people asking for us. So in that case, you are a Vaishya, but who is now working in tech. You have broken away from your usual family profession, and you were just saying, I guess you are comfortable with that, right? That first generation everything. Yeah. So describe that. And how everything we just discussed right now, how that makes sense to your existence.
Yeah, I mean, most of my family was into commerce in some form or the other. Like if I talk about my parents, then they were not into formal education, but they were into business and they were into selling things, doing some sort of a trade. And some people who did get up very high in their class status, they were generally chartered accountants or something like that. While I did not choose that profession, I still remember my father saying that, "Beta, कॉमर्स ले लो, तुमको हेल्प मिल जाएगा, तुमको कोई ना कोई बता देगा कि क्या करना है." बट मैंने कहा
ecosystem of guidance, know how best practices that existed in your status group.
Yeah.
But
I chose to leave that status group because I was never interested in commerce and trade.
Was it because of your surroundings?
Yeah,
your
my friends
pattern had already changed. That's
yeah,
why you
my
shifted your
friends in 5th, 6th, 7th standard were all science leaning. Okay, they were very enthusiastic about things which were related
Were they
to
also Marwari Vaishyas or Bengali PKs?
One was a Jain, Marwadi Jain. Another one was a Marwadi Vaishya, and another one, two of them were main. One was a Bengali.
BBK.
BBK, not BBK. I would say he was also of the same surname as yours, and he was also from. His family had also come from Bangladesh.
I see. Then not BBK.
But he was also Vaishya in that.
And I remember that his father. He told me that his father had a transportation business. So he was not a kind of a BBK Bengali.
Right.
His
Exactly.
consumption that.
So then, finish your point.
So that was the case. So I was surrounded by people who were interested more in scientific subjects.
Yeah.
So maybe that is also one of the things which pushed.
Did you
me to
grow an interest in science itself, or did you just wanted to get into science for the nice jobs and stuff?
I mean, I never got commerce. Earlier, there were two streams. Like till the 10th or 12th, there is no concept of arts. Art starts from 11th standard or maybe college. So before that, the concept was clear: science or commerce. So I had no idea about commerce. I never got into that because most of the time I used to spend with friends and not my father, who would teach me about commerce and how accounting works and how those things work. So that's why my leaning was always towards science. It is not like I loved the subject or anything. It was like an organic choice that I had no other option but to take up science. So that was the case with me, and that's when I went with scientific subjects into 11th and 12th. But I liked computers, programming computers.
I see.
That is something which I enjoyed a lot. So
That you fell in love with the subject directly.
So that is something I enjoyed a lot. So for that you had to take PCM if you wanted to do computer engineering. If you want to do computer engineering, it's mostly PCM. That is physics, chemistry, mathematics. And if you get good marks in that, then you get computer engineering or some subject like that.
So now getting to the other topics associating with this reservations. casteism and social science education. Based on your experiences in Vanguard so far, how have you found the importance of social science education to be? Is it important? Should it be taught, or it shouldn't be taught because you don't come from that field? Do you see any value to that education? And say it shortly, because now we'll ask this question to everybody else as well.
Okay. No, I do think social science education is very important in terms of, for example, history is also a part of social science. So we are taught history from childhood itself, right? To make sense of who we are, where we come from, what our identity is, how do we understand ourselves, and how do we understand the legacy of our ancestors, and how do we understand our traditions, our culture. So that is a part of social science. Because many people may think social science means anthropology and sociology only. No, it starts from history and then we move on to anthropology and sociology. Now that I have taken some interest in understanding sociology also.
Why have you?
Because
yeah.
okay. So
Why have you taken an interest in this?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I watched your channels and you took up sociology. That is one clear reason. But I think I had an inclination to understand things which were not apparent to people. Inner mechanics of how these things work, or understanding human nature. It started with understanding human nature. Why is this human behaving in a certain way? Why is this human psychology working in a certain way? So at first it started with individuals. Then I realized, no, there is a pattern. It's not entirely individualistic. It is because of an incentive structure or a system that a group of human beings behave in a common fashion. Or at least, even if there is individuality to every human being, there is this common underlying understanding of how they should behave in a certain setting, or what they consume, or what they say. For example, if we clearly see a contrast between an American society and Indian society. Though individuals are different, they have their own qualities, but we also get to understand that, yeah, there is something common with Americans, all Americans, which is different from how Indians behave. So there is a common pattern which binds people together. Why do these things happen? So I developed an interest into that because I like to think from a systemic point of view. Like it's a thing I enjoy. I sort of enjoy pattern recognition. I sort of enjoy if I'm exploring multiple disciplines. For example, someday I'm reading about cuisine. Some other day I'm thinking about movies and their themes, and then some random third day I'm thinking about how this scientific experiment or scientific technology was developed. So I always think of how all these things are interconnected. That is how I think. That I want to make a sense of what is going on, connecting the dots. And I think I learned this I would give credit to the man, Abhijit Mitra, because he always says nothing is monocausal. Everything is interconnected, it's interdisciplinary. One example that I give of him is, he said that how nutrition is connected to defense policy. At first, people would say it makes no sense because he was talking about his job. So he said that when I got into my first job as a defense analyst, my boss told me to read about nutrition. And I was like, why the hell is he trying to make me read about nutrition and not just telling me about defense policy and what should be done in defense policy? Then he said his boss told him that nothing is monocausal. Everything is interconnected. That due to bad nutrition, there is stunting, there is a lack of there is malnutrition, there is stunting, there is lack of brain development, which reflects in the way people understand what is going on in defense and they accordingly frame policy. This is a very, I would say, crude explanation of what he said, but this is what he meant. Then I realized that this is why it is so important to have a holistic view of things. At the same time, I enjoyed this way of thinking. I actually enjoy this way of thinking. because I don't like that people living in their silos and being very tunnel vision. That is when they can't see the full picture, and in India we have a problem that every department is disconnected from each other, and they are sort of doing things which are in contradiction
One of
with
the
each
main
other.
reasons of the fuck up of education system.
And it's not just about education system. Even if you see it in municipality, that because of lack of communication between departments, especially during your rainy season, one department digs the road up and they sort of to repair something, some pipeline or something. They cover up the road. Then another department comes the next day. They again dig a hole, do something. So the road is always in a bad shape, always dug. Okay. So why is it that these departments are not talking to each other in synergy, that look, we are looking to dig up this road, we are digging it up, we will do our thing, you can also do your thing, and once everything is done, we will cover up the road.
Sanyal has been talking about this since 2017-18.
Who?
Sanyal.
Yeah. So Sanjeev Sanyal is a gem because he also thinks in this manner, in this fashion.
Yeah.
He does history. He's an economist by profession. Then he talks about that voyage in your Condinia.
Experimental archaeology.
So experimental archaeology, because he has clearly said that he is not looking to build an economy but a civilization. And in civilization, there are various facets of civilization which are all interconnected. And it has to be seen as a whole, and we need such people who have this ability to interconnect things or connect the dots. Like I understand
Let's go
just
now.
just one point. I understand the importance of specialist, which is very important, that you need to have specialization in a particular subject. But at the same time, we also need to have a general idea of what is going on.
Isn't UPSC supposed to achieve that?
The problem is, in UPSC, you don't develop expertise into any one thing.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think I heard this model, T model, that is depth in one subject, but the upper part of the T, which is horizontal,
is master of some.
with the broader line, you have to have some knowledge about what are the things going on around you.
Yeah.
So I think that is the trick of the trade today. We cannot be living in silos.
Yeah.
So as a science student, we should read sociology, we should read anthropology, we should apply a scientific rigor to that, as in to test what the kind of claims they have made.
Because that has gone on decreasing in social science in the last 15 years.
And the quality of research has declined in these fields. That there is hardly any rigor. People are writing, there is a lot of subjectivity because human experience is more important. Lived experience is more important. So scientific rigor being introduced into humanities can do world of good to humanities. This is not about right wing or left wing. This is just about objective research on subjects related to humanities.
Yeah. Well, many modern I think forever a lot of sociologists would have disagreed with your fundamental premise that it's supposed to be objective. It doesn't need to be objective according to many. So we'll get into those debates later. So, Shrayan, what's up with social science education? Why social science education?
Now look, the way I look at it is, and I'm going to maybe draw a parallel or juxtaposition to establish one of my points. Now, there indeed was one point in history of India, of post-colonial India, of let's say independent India, when the IT sector was not in the magnanimous shape that it is now. It was much smaller in scale, and to a very large section of the society, the IT sector was not the status quo option for a person to get a job. It is only now that after a pretty long time it has become the run-of-the-mill thing where every single person, whoever graduates, takes a graduation in engineering and then goes off to work in an IT sector like a, let's say, IT labor. The thing is, what is that one factor perhaps that brought the IT sector to the mainstream beyond providing workforce for, let's say, some foreign companies and MNCs? I would like to present it in this fashion, that it was a to and fro process whereby there was a demand and people had to supply workforce for that demand, and then the demand increased as a result of it. So perhaps what I'm trying to establish is the despicable state of social sciences in India is maybe largely because we have not been able to commercialize the social sciences in our particular country.
Why? OP Jindal is Ashoka is commercialized enough.
Yes, they are commercialized enough, but once again, now simply look at it from the perspective of a technical education itself, let's say. Like we have something called a military industrial complex, we also have something called an industry academic complex. So if you trace the trajectory of how, let's say, premier universities like, let's say, the MIT came into existence, or even the Oxford for that matter, there was a particular trajectory that they followed whereby there was a parallel development of the academics and the industry. Here, obviously, due to the late onset of social sciences into the Indian curriculum, the Indian audience at large, or the people who have, let's say, subscribed for that particular course at large, will not have the cultural capital, the social capital, or the expertise in that particular field to be as good as the West. But that was initially the case for our tech bros as well in India. Slowly they have...
Which era?
I would say even up until the 1990s, I'd say. So, हाँ,
कैमरा नहीं था, कैमरा था क्यों बेड़ो
yeah. Up until, let's say, the 1990s, that was eventually the scenario for tech as well. But then it is particularly because a certain section of the society thought that that was the way to go about it to quench the problem of unemployment for the educated citizens, that we did not give up on that venture, and we kept on, let's say, making industries at scale and provide, let's say, procuring things like TCS and stuff where people will be getting employment at large, they'll be beginning their career over there, and then they'll transition to better places. Now, the simple reason perhaps that we have not been able to do the same with social sciences is probably the reason why it has not disseminated at the same proportion as technical education has in our society. So, look at it in this way: what was the domestic demand of social sciences in the Indian context beyond being a professor? Because yes,
USAID.
yes, USAID. Now that was the position back then.
There are more registered numbers of NGOs than the total number of individual policemen in India.
Yeah. Now, what I'm perhaps trying to say is, now that we are in a position where we are having budding tech startups, why is it that there is no requirement, or why is it that there is the massive crunch for sociologists or anthropologists is not being felt in the research teams or the R&D teams of these tech startups? So probably there is a disparity and rather a dismissal of the way a person should go about thinking how to scale their startups, and it's probably also one of the reasons why most of the Indian tech bros are lagging behind in innovation. It's not because of technical merit, you see.
Yeah.
If that was indeed the case, then these same people would not be going to the Silicon Valley and be the, let's say, CEOs of the largest MNCs out there.
How many innovators are even technically brilliant?
Yeah.
How many founders of...
Most innovators aren't technically brilliant, and the vice versa is also true, where most technically brilliant people do not come up with an original idea.
Yeah.
So why
You
is...
have a geek and a maverick at the same time all the time? Everyone
Yeah.
is not going to be Vivek Raman.
Yeah, exactly. So that purity in probably technical background or academic background for the matter has been a large hindrance in the Indian entrepreneurial context as well. And the lack of diffusion of these two parties on a level playing field is one of the very reason that we have not been able to come up with great innovations as such. Had it been so that the
There are
thinking
huge
would...
problems with our parenting as well.
Yeah, there are huge problems with the parenting as well. But understand, at some point, and probably you can trace it back and find a particular threshold or cutoff here, but we empirically find that engineering was not always the first course of action that a parent chose for their children. if today the scenario is such
Software
that
engineering.
software engineering, there are other forms of engineering. For example, you would have to go to a factory and work as an electrical engineer. You would be overseeing stuff. It may not be a menial job, but you'll be overseeing a bunch of people in workshops and stuff. But software engineering was never the status quo choice even till, let's say, 30 years ago. But it became because there were opportunities and people gradually realized that it's fine. If it gets you an income and it has got something to do with education, then that works. Where did, because let's see, the ancient Indian civilization, one can argue, had a thirst for scientific vigor and rigor and everything. But one would have to agree that at some point of time it was lost until it was again rediscovered during the times of Calcutta University and Jadavpur University by people like P.C. Roy and the associates of the Anushilan Samiti. Now, if that was indeed the case, why was it that sociology or all these social sciences could not be rediscovered? Now, one might say that they, in their current form, have originated in the West, but their, let's say, Indian counterparts, for example, let's say Niti Shastra or all of these things existed. So, perhaps what I am trying to say is there was no way these things could be commercialized and could generate a dignified income to most people, which is why they could not be adopted in the society at a larger scale.
So I have a huge disagreement. Are you saying that therefore there isn't a market for sociologists outside teaching, which there isn't because of the number of NGOs, which will probably decrease today because of the lack of USAID? The point is, what are they coming in use for, right?
No, the thing is, perhaps they are being employed by the USAID because we have not been able to generate the demand for an alternative job for them through our startups and entrepreneurial
But
ventures.
they will segue with that, we
Yeah.
were discussing that.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I have to ask a question.
Just question take.
Yeah, so like in India, we,
চাউ ছেড়ে দিয়েছে কোশ্চেনটা করার জন্য।
in case of India, sociologists do not have much opportunity beyond academia, as we are, and NGOs beyond the point. But in Western countries, what opportunities do sociologists get
Same.
beyond academia and NGOs?
They get hired by tech companies to understand CSR and stuff, guide them along with that.
Yeah, so how do you think,
And come up with DI.
yeah, how do you think Facebook and Meta gained
And
their
business
popularity
training.
in the first places?
Yeah.
Who do you think worked out the R&D of these teams on how to expand and how to even, let's say, plan their interface so that they can affect maximum people and at best get them addicted? There are entire streams of research. For example, there's something called neuromarketing. And it was an up-and-coming thing even in the 90s. Today, it has been widely adopted by all of the massive commercial hubs, whereby you try to figure out at what part of the brain is triggered by which stimulus when you're in a market environment, or when you are at a supermarket, let's say. That itself was a massive stream where it required to process how a person functions and what are the bottlenecks, what are the things a person falls for. You have not generated those legitimate sources of jobs in India, even though your current form of, let's say, tech validation that you're getting was also imported from the West. So you have been able to do this from the West, but you have not been able to import the, let's say, fantasizing of sociological background works from the West. So if your source of both these things are common, and West was indeed the, let's say, the boundary that you're looking at while taking these things in, why have you been able to do it for the one and you have not been able to replicate it for the other? One thing can be that, okay, fine, sociology can only find space in the Indian context when the people indeed who are hiring them are also Indians. But what I'm perhaps trying to say is that we have actually crossed that bottleneck where startups and entrepreneurial ventures are coming in at massive stake right now, the likes of which was probably not viable or technically or financially feasible 20 years ago. So what I'm saying is now is the exact right time for the government and the Indian audience at large to present this point in every of their individual and collective echo chambers that this is the time when we can mainstream it. There is a legitimate requirement, and therefore
Mainstreaming sociology.
mainstreaming sociology in the context of providing R&D for startups and other things beyond simply professorship and being a part of an NGO. Because that, I believe, just a moment, that I believe works for everything. You simply do not have a channel to actually utilize a particular skill set. So you'll automatically adhere to the only available channel of work. So you have to present that, because I like to believe that economy drives most of the things. Since there was no demand of that particular thing beyond a certain threshold or beyond a certain segment, people who were actually perhaps genuinely passionate or interested in these things never got a channel to use their skill sets, and then got hired by USAID.
Social sciences, by the way, sociology in general has created a lot of good journalists.
Yeah.
Maybe not directly intended, but at least as an unintended consequence, like Ajit Bhartiya gets English literature, right? He's not sociology. There's somebody else, Arnab Goswami himself is from a sociology background. That's why he gets it a little more.
I think they understand the society well when they talk,
Yeah.
when they approach the society as journalists. For
Yeah.
example, Arnab Goswami came up with that idea of shouting and whatever, filibustering or whatever his model of journalism is. So he understands the mindset of the people and how the society works. Then
Yeah.
only he comes up with such a popular model of
Yeah.
journalism. Now we may not agree with that model.
Yeah.
That is fair, but you cannot deny that he is successful with his model.
Yeah, that's his bank balance.
And another point is that why is it sociology being used in development, that is research and development? I think there is another point to be made here, is because if you look at office setups, if I talk about from my experience and how offices are set up and how the rules are designed, how the functionality of the office will be, how people will engage with each other, those etiquettes and manners, it is basically a copy paste of the West. We haven't developed our own sociological theories or psychological theories on the basis of which our offices will work, our corporate systems will work. Japan did it to a great extent.
Japan completely did it.
Yeah, they did it to a complete extent, where so much so that when you write emails to Japanese, they will tell you. Our bosses used to tell us that put san behind their name.
I heard this even in Yamaha bike shop where I used to service my Yamaha bike.
Yeah.
Every Bengali used to call him by some san or the.
Yeah, san is basically G in Japanese.
Yeah.
Abhay Ji, Abhay san.
Yeah.
Okay. But in our offices, we cannot even start the greeting with namaste or namaskar. That says a lot that we are simply copying and imitating. And that happens when you do not have.
जी बोलना भी बंद हो रहा है.
हाँ, जी बोलना भी बंद हो रहा है.
फर्स्ट नेम बेसिस पे सब लेना.
तो हम लोग मतलब हमारे ऑफिस में हमको बोला जाता है ये इंडियन कल्चर है कि आप फर्स्ट नेम 50 वर्ष का व्यक्ति होगा तब भी आप उसको फर्स्ट नेम से बुलाए. मैं बोला ये इंडियन कल्चर कब से हो गया? हम लोग तो भैया दीदी चाचा ऐसे बोलते थे, अंकल बोलते थे भाई. ये हमारा कल्चर था ही नहीं.
Now one problem still exists with Shoyan's idea of using sociology in R&D, which is the existing sociology. If that's used in startup R&D, then it's going to be again complete DEI and intersectional identification. Wait. And the other problem is, একটু বল তুই লাস্ট কি বলছিলি যখন রিঅ্যাক্ট করলাম, এটা খুব একটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট সেগওয়ে আছে ওখানে, যে তোর ওয়েট হোয়াটস দ্য টাইম, উই হ্যাভ টাইম রাইট?
আমি বলছিলাম যে
এটা তো তুই আসবি পরে. হ্যাঁ,
we are doing it in English. So what I was saying is, in sociology we are imitating our office.
Right. My question is,
etiquette is being imitated.
when somebody diagnoses this problem, the next step they do is, when you are talking about our sociology, when it comes to R, it directly has to some people believe who generally diagnose this problem that the next step is therefore do a sociology that is somehow connected to some Hindu text or the other. Why can't R be beyond any Hindu text that was written a long time back? Why does it have to come from there?
No.
Don't we deserve to survive today if we didn't have great texts from our ancestors?
No, there is a reason behind it. That is, the root of our values and culture comes from Hindu texts, Hindu civilization. So that essence is going to be there. The problem lies is that we want to go back to the Vedic ages.
Yeah,
and we want to adapt.
How
to
that old wisdom is used in that application lies the.
Yeah, how can we use it in our contemporary context?
Yeah,
and we can fuse some Western ideas. There is nothing wrong with that. But you have to modernize the application of your values and systems.
Now, introduce yourself and then. अच्छा तू इंग्लिशে comfortable না হিন্দিতে? इंग्लिश. Okay, so firstly, কতটা কাছে রাখবি? এইখানে আমি ধরে রাখছি. So, sociology education in general, do you see it as a waste of public money?
See, the problem I see in the Indian sociology education system is that the problem in the sociology education is the word education itself, because in India, if we go to the lower tiers of colleges, then we will see that in the name of education, it is just passing an exam by memorizing the potential questions that the teacher has been giving since the time of Lord Clive. And in the top tier colleges, we find that the sociology department itself is sitting on the lap of the leftist professors who are there only to serve their leftist masters and to propagate their ideology, that how this world is divided into haves and have-nots, and in Indian construct, this haves refer to the so-called Brahmins or the supporters of this Brahmins, this right-wing BJP RSS people. Therefore, in order to do something new, for example, Shrine suggested that using the sociology, we must open some R&D or startup related thing. But in a sociological system, in a sociological academia, where the entire thing is evolved around the leftist mindset, where profit itself is a dirty word, how the sociologists will work in a startup where their goal is wealth generation? While we
For that they are hypocrite enough, so there won't be a problem with that. Hypocrisy solves the problem.
Yes, hypocrisy definitely. Yes, hypocrisy definitely solves the problem. That's true. But yes, that is, I think, the best only potential. Like,
Is it a waste of public money or not? Which you were arguing.
see, it is certainly the waste of public money, because as I told a few minutes back,
What about the scholarship as well?
nice point. In Bengal, a scholarship has been provided to anyone who takes part in the graduation. Anyone. I doubt if tomorrow Reagents the SPED get a chance to get a graduation, he will also be provided with the same money. And for the first semester, there is no criterion. From the second semester onwards, you will be judged based on your whether you fail in an exam or not. And you have to score 40% in an exam where the internal marks is 30%. So in a paper of 70, you have to just score 10, which I think if anyone just write the questions, they will get that marks. And as far I know, the previous government was very lenient with marks. So
Marks for the freebies also.
So if the purpose of sociology, keeping a sociology degree is to make a few thousands of people having sociology graduate, then it is serving the cause. But if and only if you want to create individuals who can use the knowledge of sociology, then I think it is the worst possible way to do so.
Why do you think we have so much jobless graduates? Because they are getting these bullshit degrees in pointless subjects, which are pointless for their lives, because they won't pursue sociology. They will get the degree just to get some job that says have a degree in anything or study for UPSC. And it generates a lot of employment for the teachers, classroom maintenance, etc., ground stuff, everything, which is a part of what Abhijit Banerjee was saying in that live stream, where we reacted to Abhijit Banerjee's podcast, where he argues that just because something is efficient doesn't mean you only use the efficient thing, because with that efficiency you will be losing a lot of jobs. Again, Milton Friedman counter argues to that kind of thinking, saying that then build roads with forks, because then you'll be employing practically the entire country. But what Abhijit Banerjee is arguing is a little more dangerous, that there are societal consequences for doing that kind of efficiency, because of that lack of jobs which will be created because of the efficiency. That lack of jobs only in the lower classes of the population will probably create higher crime rates, therefore employ them as the chaprasi in a sociology classroom, therefore have a bullshit sociology degree proven. It's a win-win situation for everybody except the country.
My suggestion is a bit different. Like, our goal at the end is to create a productive individual, whereas here money.
Who is this our? The government goal is not to produce a productive individual. Who is this our? CSK Vanguard goal is to produce.
The question is quite good. See, the problem is in the naming. For example, if we know that a sociology or a degree, I am not disrespecting Bengali, but a degree in Bangla honors is not going to give you any job. So
Why not a good Bengali journalist? Being a good Bengali journalist or author. That author is not a job, but
the
columnist, etc.
the problem is no one is buying the Anandabajar Patrika nowadays. So
Yeah, continue.
So nobody is buying the Anandabajar Patrika nowadays, and to be an journalist, the time you are wasting in memorizing the thousands of years of previous year question paper, you can do that by learning the editing skills or creating your own YouTube channel. The problem here is our love for the word graduate behind our name. The problem is that, for example, if your electrician earns 1 lakh a month, but he will not get a girl from our.
Does jump to nahi hua.
No, he will not get a job. Therefore, my suggestion is, it might sound a bit weird, that convert the ITI diploma degree, like diploma in electrician, to bachelor's in electrician, and give the, for example, if we look a little bit more, we will find that the people who are doing this ITIs, they require this scholarship money more than the so-called sociology graduates. So since people are only behind the scholarship, give scholarships to the ITIs, and we will see that I think it will be more productive, because despite not getting scholarships, people from the lower rungs of society in West Bengal are taking admissions in this industrial training. So instead of giving this, wasting money for this purpose of creating some Birendra Shashmal from Nodia, BA graduate in sociology, who just runs his father's grocery shop,
Whose sociology degree is in Bengali, which means he cannot read any advanced sociology book ever.
whose sociology degree is in Bengali, and I doubt whether he can properly spell the sociology in English also.
Yeah, that's the level of the English knowledge. Yes. Now coming back to our new guest, and we have two new people in Vanguard who have met up for the first time in person today. So একটু এদিকে চলে হ্যাঁ সবাই পিছন চলে যায় একদম এখানটায় ঢুকে আসে মুখ না দেখালে খুবই বেস্ট ভয়েস ইয়েস উই হ্যাভ আ ব্যাটম্যান মনস্টার আচ্ছা তুই আর এগুলো দেখতে পাবি না তোমায় দেখা যাচ্ছে না একটু এদিকে আসো জায়গা আছে চলে আসো একটু এবার এই ডায়াগনাল এদিকে আসো রাইট So, sociology education, and do you think it's related to how we talk about caste, and therefore where do you stand on reservations and the andolan that's happening?
Okay, lots of things there. Okay, let's look at it this way, right? In terms of reservation, what's essentially happened there, that at some point of time, people have decided that we have segments within society which are no longer competitive for XYZ reasons and hence must be secured, right? That's the exact same thing that's actually infiltrated in sociology as well. Not specifically sociology, but all affiliated things in those lines, humanities, sociology, everything else along those lines. So why?
বিলটা দিতে হবে অজায় পড়া যাবে না আমরা হাঁটতে করবো বাইরে
Okay.
তুই বিলটা দিতে বল এখন হয়ে গেছে হ্যাঁ সুশান্ত তুই যখন বলতে চাস হ্যাঁ তোকে যে কাউন্টারটা
Okay, so okay, that works. Yeah. So now look, one counter that was being raised to whatever I said was that the current standard of sociologists that we are producing are of no particular use to one of these startups. Now, I believe that argument can be extrapolated and applied to the tech scenario in India as well, where at some point we did indeed have some sort of ubermensch of tech bros who basically set a standard, and every other member of the society looking at them started, let's say, emulating their ways to gain that social capital which one of them had gained and inspired a lot of other people to do that. Now, probably what I'm saying is, even after outsourcing almost half of our tech pro population to the Silicon Valley and owning the CEO positions of so many tech companies, if the IITs are still pondering upon the curriculum to be changed in a more suitable fashion or a more contemporary fashion and do a revamp of it to achieve greater heights, why is it that the process cannot be emulated by the sociological background streams as well? If in a particular field which we seemingly as an Indian cohort have completely excelled and are better than 90% of the world, if we are still considering revamping those systems simply to produce an even better quality of let's say students, I think it's an opportune moment to set up that same procedure of correction and rectification and incremental improvements in sociology. The problem is we have not been able to find a particular marking point where we can give one big push to it and then we are going to gradually improve over time. So that's my argument. If we are doing it for STEM, we can be doing it for the social sciences as well. Just that there is finally a demand, at least for a good bunch of people who are into sociology.
বিল দিচ্ছে ও তুমি দিয়ে দিয়েছো আচ্ছা তাহলে সবাই সবারটা একটু দেখে রাখ কে কি করেছি
Yeah.
ওটা আমরা ওকে জিজ্ঞেস করবো লেটস গো উইল বি নাও অন আ মোবাইল ডিসকাশন এই অনেক কিছু নিতে হবে বুঝলি এটা চার্জারটা ধরা ওয়েট গাইস আচ্ছা তুই একটু এই No, it does podcast. Mobile podcast, last video podcast. চলমান এবং স্থির হাতে এত কিছু রয়েছে কিছু ফেলে নাকি দেখ চার্জারটা আমার দিতে মনে রাখিস ওটা আমার Wait guys, we will have internet problems just for a while. Wait a moment. I will just fix Where are they? Right. When কথা বলবে, they will hold the camera and talk like this and walk in front so that everybody else is visible as well. Okay. So, hi guys, so you all can see us, right? What are the comments? Let's see. It's buffering, no? It won't buffer anymore. I have nice data. It will work now. Is it still buffering? So that's what was discussed in the stream. Who's another Bampanthi? You sure that's possible? Moving and stationary. I am Bampanthi, so I am sociologist. Is it lagging and stuff, guys? I think we're extra, no? Hi guys, everybody else. চল ওদিকে চল এই সবাই একদম কাছাকাছি আয় যাতে ক্যামেরা সবাইকে দেখা যায় ঠিক আছে আয় বাদিকে ডান দিকে আয় what the fuck is going on here okay here's an example of Bengali factory entrepreneurship this is a Clark Sahan earwax eardrop manufacturing lab so hey শোন একটা কেমন কোয়ালিটি আসছে what is going on here the truck gets stuck or something what the fuck আরে লেওড়া গাড় মেরে গেছে চল দিতে চল না যে মরে যাবো আমরা lagging. So yeah, we will have to go to some place where there is better. Yeah, we will reach those places now. So we were discussing what's the technology education now. Now, does anybody have counter argument to Abhijit Banerjee's justification? Because that's not nothing, isn't it? I know it's good for the country, but in the long run especially, but isn't it good for country in short term at least? Because at least a lot of people are getting hired, and both as a professor, as a sociology, who really cares? And then some UPSC preparation is also good, and you need to degree in something. So yeah, who would like to give? What are the questions? Yes,
See, see, what we want to, for example, if someone wants to just call, then he will buy a very low quality phone. For someone whose own quality is to call someone, they are buy the phone of the least price. They are not going to buy the Apple phone, which has more price to it. Similarly, when we want to solve the problem so that the youth of the nation don't many more cost-effective solution. Giving them government job is like giving someone Apple phone just for the sake of calling. For example, in countries like
audio गार्ड में दिए थे देखिए 8 distance के बोलता है बोलता था कि now tell us if it's better.
in countries like France, they introduce football to the children in the slums so that they don't get misguided. And I think providing a football infrastructure is, or much athletic events, is much more cheaper than distributing government jobs only so that the youths don't get misguided. There are thousands of productive ways to stop the youth from getting misguided, like opening, like providing them business loans, motivating them to do some kinds of sport.
Right.
Or there are thousands of ways, but why we are using the way that is most costly and least efficient?
Fair enough. Sharon, or anybody who wants to continue, his idea is pretty good, that exactly what you are trying to achieve, exactly what Abhijit Banerjee is saying is getting achieved through these, what we are arguing are wastages. Instead of that, they can do like business loans and technical education, or which is also creating employment. Sports. I mean, there are sports programs, but it's not very efficiently done, and we are spending a lot to bring Brazil and stuff. But sports just as a way to keep people off from crimes and stuff, which is exactly what Abhijit Banerjee is asking for anyway. So why shouldn't that work out? At a distance.
Look, now the way I look at it is, whatever Dr. Abhijit Banerjee points out, that we need to resolve the problems of the poor, and there is a huge section of the society which are still very poor and depend on daily wages, and all of those arguments. The thing is, how many of the startups that are being started in India, for that matter, are being advertised for the sake of, let's say, we are doing it for the sake of profitability. We don't do it anyway. All of these startups are advertising them simply by saying that we are going to solve a major problem for whom? The poor. So anyway, I don't think there is any discontinuity in the narrative in the first place. It is going to go about the way it has been going on so far. The thing I am perhaps trying to say is, if people are indeed already enrolled in these particular jobs, why is it that they do not feel the necessity to upskill themselves so as to get a better earning? If you contemplate it from the position of drawing a parallel with what happened in technical education, one can always say that a random 3-tier guy can have a basic understanding of software engineering. Yeah. From a tier 3 college, a guy can have a preliminary understanding of, let's say, software engineering, front end and back end, and he can secure a job of 30 to 40 rupees in, let's say, TCS or any of those scalable tech companies. But there indeed is a superior class of tech bros we have in India who are getting opportunities outside, is because there are other levels to this where you are getting paid better. So there is that intrinsic motivation for you to upskill yourselves, even if you are from a 3-year college, because outside perimeters of those colleges there is an infrastructure or ecosystem which demands you to have these skills, and if you do have these skills, you will be rewarded equivocally. Where is that existing ecosystem in the case of sociology? If indeed there was a huge demand of sociologists or anthropologists or anyone who understands or interprets these things, then even if your curriculum was indeed shaped, you could have chosen for alternative method. Why is it you think that in the field of technical education you have so many coaching institutes which has propped up? Rarely find any of these in the fields of sociology or anthropology or social sciences in general. That is one of the primary things I'm trying to point out. And also, even if you look at technical IT sector, are eventually not the people who have created those jobs in the first place. In some of the greatest tech companies of the world, the person who is the founder of those is not even remotely related to technical education, or perhaps the problem that they are trying to solve is not directly associated with technical education. They have tech as a way to solve a particular problem. So if the causes and
The strategy itself is the problem.
if the strategy is the same and the trajectory itself is the same, then I guess it's simply a lack of motivation or intention in simply because of your fears of being lagging behind a bit too much in compared to the rest of the world. But one can always argue the same was true for the technical fields, let's say 30 to 40 years ago. So, if we are not going to have a definitive start point now, we will have an ecosystem where we will be basically looking at, let's say, revamping the curriculum 20 years down the line, like the IITs do, despite having an initial expertise to further improve our goals. That intention is completely missing in Indian resource, and I feel that's simply a simple reason behind it, or the most major reason behind it perhaps is the lack of organic demand in the market.
We have a counter argument here. It's an interesting one. That reservation doesn't mean distributing jobs for free. I don't think people try to get on the top before opening their mouth. Everyone has to give exam, 90% get rejected. So what's the problem?
Okay, so if I may continue.
Wait, okay, sure. You were taking this is my first training ground. I learned to be a fast boy here. So, and as it with his idea as well, tied up with his idea, the sport martial arts, you are involved with martial arts training itself. How does that associate the same result that Vidyanand is saying can happen by simply applying people anyhow? So, on YouTube audio
Any kind of physical activity creates a mindset of critical thinking. So
না আগে ওই পয়েন্টটা কাউন্টার করে না এই গভর্নমেন্ট জবে তো সবাই আলটিমেট উঠা দিচ্ছে রিজার্ভেশন ডাজন্ট মিন distributing government job has to give exams that okay you counter this then you will come
Okay, recently
এখানে বেটার টু লাইফ কেমন আছে
let me speak if
then we have to go to some other place where the internet is better. It will like
is my voice clear? Just check my voice. Now
মাঝে মাঝে আসছে মাঝে মাঝে আসছে
লাইভটা যা লাইভ লেখাটায় ক্লিক কর
এবার আসছে এবার আসছে। এখানে
so my voice is clear and is very smooth.
বেটার একটু দূরে রাখতে হবে
হ্যাঁ
এই অবধি আর। তুই এখানে বস, বসবি না গাছ আমার পাইন নোংরা হয়ে যাবে। হ্যাঁ এতটাই দূরে রাখ।
এরকম ঠিক আছে so what was the argument he made that people give exams but there is an example where people from certain caste categories are getting admission into PG courses with -40 as their cutoffs. So it would have been better if you would have given them admission without any examination, or they would have scored better had they not even attempted the paper and just submitted empty paper.
Why do people counter this argument? People pretend that doesn't happen. That anybody and everybody is passing the exam. People think that the exams are all sacrosanct. People are
Standard of passing. What is the cutoff? If the cut is -40, it's better to just induct people without any examiners. Or that had that person submitted the paper without writing anything, that person would have got better marks. That is zero.
Someone is saying, why not introduce minimum qualifying marks similar to in government job?
Recently in the movement, there was a concept of minimum qualifying marks, but we need best people for the job. So whoever scores the highest, and among the highest scorers, whoever is scoring the bare minimum to be within that top 10 or top 5 will get the job, they should get the job. Otherwise, you are disincentivizing people from working hard. You are telling people that if you belong to a certain caste who are not from your caste, so you are not prioritizing merit, you are prioritizing whatever it is, social justice or representation. So that is a big, and it impacts institutions. Rajan.
So, if you try to solve all these problems with just martial arts training or sports, then are you saying Abhijit Banerjee is wrong?
No, I don't think he's wrong. Like he's
We need to employ anyhow, and he said that why not employ them, fund them in such a way, engineers and technical education people. Technical education, and that also creates employment because you teach them that stuff, they become good at that stuff, so employment is generated anyway. So with Banerjee's point can be achieved through other means as well. That's his argument.
people thinks so. One point that Abhay said, people are getting into that education marks category, but most of them after getting the in, they are dropping out because they don't feel like oh हमको दे दिया है तब तो perform well that.
But you know the counter argument to that, right? That they face more discrimination.
They face more high. We should take them anyhow. Of the thing is funding much beyond.
অন্য কোথাও যেতে হবে। তুই চেক করতে থাক, আমরা অন্য কোথাও যেতে হবে। হ্যাঁ বলো।
The thing jobs or opportunity we had opportunities for oh ये लो तुम्हारे लिए ये opportunity है take this. So people will perform lower, or this argument that is being given that there should be a minimum qualifying marks, and so that instills some value. Yeah, there is a minimum marks, there is a minimum thing in the field, in any field. If you are not performing at the minimum level, then you can get cut off. You have to introduce this penalties and stuff. It's like the corporate model. There is audits and you are found that you are not performing legal shows, and if you are not performing that, also you would be eliminated.
And we'll end the live stream because I'm going to it was supposed to happen in that my place some partying because my rules we'll take this question and ponder over it and make fun of this comment amongst ourselves offline and then take it up the next day as well. That same person is saying stop using -40 example. It was for OBC plus disabled person PWD category. So it's fine, bro.
Can I?
On that note, no, internet is not really working. Thanks guys, we'll fix it next day. Bye.